Folks. So in this video I wanted to talk about how sometimes we give a lot of control to some of the people in the world or to some of the people in our lives, right? So for example, in my case, my sister and my mom, my mother, and even my dad have a lot of control over me. So let's just think of it like a remote control car, where the car will be me, and the remote control is just a remote, and they can just use the remote control to just control me, right? So, or you can consider me as a TV or whatever. Like, I understand this is objectification, but I'm objectifying myself. This is also not a great thing to do, but just to make the concept simple, right? So if they have the remote control and they can control me, who gave the remote control to them? Like, they kind of got it themselves in some ways, because they brought me up. They actually were my primary caregivers growing up, and I also in some way gave it to them, because I believe that everyone is their own owner and they have enough agency, assuming they are in a okayish life situation and not like they are dependent on someone. Because if you are financially dependent on someone, or someone put a gun to your head and like used fear to control you, that's one situation. But then you're just living a, I don't know, like quote unquote normal life. You define your own normal, and you don't have to be remote controlled by someone. Then you are your owner. But in some ways people can control you, they can actually manipulate you, they can influence you, and for malicious reasons or for good intentions, but then it's not going to end up well for you. For example, my family wants me to get married to someone they find, right? But then I don't think that's a great thing for me, because I don't want to marry some stranger, right? I want to marry someone who I actually know for a lot of years, and then got to know them, fell in love with them, and then and then I chose to marry them, right? Now, and this is one thing, and like influencing, controlling, and then controlling, say, or taking decisions for someone else, right? Using the remote control, or manipulating them to take some actions, or for example, to marry someone, or deciding for someone else and things like that. And then also controlling someone's emotions, feelings, right? Apart from actions, words and all. So, sometimes you should understand that when you give your remote control to someone, you trust that they will use it or they will never use it. Though they have the remote control, they will never use it. They will surely never use it to harm you. But the moment you see that someone is using your remote control that you gave to them, they're using it to harm you, and they're doing it intentionally, in the sense that they know that it's hurting you, it's harming you, but they think it's for your own good, and then they decide what is good for you. Even when you're an adult, grown-up adult, quote unquote a mature, able adult. Though people might say, hey, there are people, immature people, disabled people, mentally disabled people and whatnot. But let's just say they are not doing self-harm, which is not a great thing, I would say. I mean, there are many ways to end problems. Self-harm and suicide is not one of them, according to me. And so, yeah, I mean, like, if someone is using the remote control to actually control you and do things that you don't want to do, then you need to start looking at how can you get the remote control back. Like, you want the problem to end, right? You don't want people to be controlling you and be like making you do things that you don't like or that you're not interested in, right? Say you don't like some food, but are you being forced to eat that food? Is it really necessary, right? Or you don't want to marry someone, or you don't want to marry some stranger, but then are you being forced, or are you being influenced, emotional blackmailed, or whatever, controlled? Then you need to see about how you can get the remote control back. For example, if they shouldn't control you, you shouldn't give them the control. You should be strong enough to actually just be able to say no and not be affected by their words and their, like, they should just not be able to control your emotions, feelings, actions, words, just like that. So basically you get the remote control back from them. So that is one way. Or you just distance yourselves from them. Don't talk to them. Physically have distance, and emotionally and mentally also have some distance, and talk less to them. Like, this is literally like, I'm in India, for example. If I go off to some foreign country where my parents or my sister can't visit me, and they don't talk to me much over the phone, they really can't control me that much. This is kind of like how remote control doesn't work from very far off distances, right? There is some limit to remote control, right? So I think of it like that. So you basically distance yourself, because this you would do when you really can't get the remote control back, at least not quickly, because you have been actually trained in such a way, you have been given care, and you have been brought up in such a way that you need to listen to them, the person who has the remote control or the people who have the remote control. So you can't just one day get up and say, I'll be strong and I'll not be affected by the words of my parents or my sister, or like whoever are the loved ones who are trying to actually intentionally hurt me and are trying to make me do things, right? So then if you can't just suddenly change that and get the remote control back, what do? You distance yourselves. So either get the remote control back, be strong and get the remote control back from someone who is actually misusing it. Basically someone who is trying to misuse the power that you gave to them, or just distance yourselves from them. Another thing is, like, I wouldn't go for this. Like, of course this is not an option for me, and according to me for anyone really, right? A remote control, a person or anything can control a car, a remote control thing, using a remote control only if the remote control exists and the thing is within the distance and the thing exists. So if someone has to remote control me, I should be alive, right? I should be alive and able. I should be within the physical distance, and the remote control should be working, and it should be with the person who wants to use the remote control. So assuming they have the remote control and it's working and the distance is fine, and I am within the proper distance, then one way is like just end me. But I never see that as an option, but some people might think of that. Like I have thought of that, but then of course suicide is never an option according to me. Like my idea is, you don't end yourself, you don't die by suicide, you instead actually kill the problem, right? So you try to get out of the problem, out of the issue, out of the problematic situation, instead of basically you end the situation and not yourself. So so these are some ideas that was going on in my head. So if you've given your remote control to someone and they're misusing it, you should probably do something about it. So that's all I had for this video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.